Well, isn't Sonoma jealous of Paso Robles?
Jealous. I know we love our friends in Sonoma, but I think we've certainly made a dent in California tourism.
Knock on wood, our brand strength, our appellation strength still supports a family and a group of people that are making wine the old-fashioned way.
My friends are in the wine industry. My wife works in the wine industry. To get to do that for a living, it's a dream come true.
We're sitting down with Chris and Joel from the Wine Country Alliance, and we're diving into the growth of Paso and maybe some of the fun stories where they're chasing K-pop stars in Korea. But that's all coming up next. Welcome to the Share the Lohr podcast by J. Lohr Vineyards and Wines, where we take you behind the scenes over a glass of wine. Let's uncork and dive in. Cheers. To the Paso wine team here.
All right. Ho, ho.
Happy to be here. This is fun.
So we have two rock stars who were part of a team that hosted an amazing event last night. We have Chris Toronto, who's the communications director of PRWCA, and then Joel Peterson, executive director. Thank you guys for joining us.
Well, yeah, thanks for having us. This is fun.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's been a little while. I think you were chasing us down for a bit too.
A year, but you know.
To find time in the calendars. We're all so busy.
Well, congratulations on everything from last night and everything that you are all doing. I mean, I know that J. Lohr gets a lot of benefit from your organization, so really appreciate it. But this episode is all about both of you and Paso Wine. So real quick, what's the quick 30-second origin story of each of you and Paso Wine? Oh, we weren't expecting that one, huh?
Whoa. No, I wasn't. Was that on the list?
It was not on the list, Chris. All right, how did you get your superpowers?
Well, I started 18 years ago. I interviewed for a job that seemed to already be kind of tailored for me in a sense, because I was already doing tourism marketing and had been in Paso for about 3 years at that point in time, and found my way over into the Wine Alliance, and they can't get rid of me. So
we've tried. 18 years later.
Well, I guess Joel likes you a little bit. And so what's your origin story, Joel?
Good. It's funny. My family's from Paso, but I didn't really move here until about the same time. I moved here full-time in 03.
Okay.
And I was working for another brand you guys know, Hope Family, Triana, at that time. And they hired Stacey Jacob that same year. And she just did some great things with the association, and I thought, man, that's a cool job. She's the executive director. What does that do? And I was working for Hope, and I got to do marketing and travel, and can I just help build brands over there? And I saw what they were doing, and then as I progressed in my career, I always kept my eye on the Alliance, and the job came up about 6 years ago. I applied and selected as the new executive director, and I've loved every second of it. It's been 6 years. I love just getting to build the reputation, the awareness, the promotion of a region. It's just so special.
Yeah.
And having lived here, I got to live in it. You know, my friends are in the wine industry. My wife works in the wine industry. It's just part of a community. We saw it last night at the annual gala. So to get to do that for a living, it's a dream come true.
Yeah, it's been fun having Joel in this role. We've known each other actually since he was at Hope Family, and so since I was in my position, here we are all of a sudden, you know, traveling together, talking about Paso, you know, bringing Paso Robles wines and our brands to all over the United States, and so when he came in as our new ED, it was like, oh, cool, right on. You know, we already know each other.
Yeah. And
this is going to be a great partnership, and it's been fun ever since. I feel like we've done a lot of really great things, actually, since Joel's joined the team, and it's kind of weird for me to say that. He's been here 6 years now, right? But it's been really good. We've really taken Paso, I think, in so many new and great directions, and trying to expand the brand awareness of our region.
You know, I know I've seen, you know, I always used to think of, you know, what used to be called the Vintners and Growers Association, now the Wine Alliance. You know, you think of them as, you know, the guys that you know, put on the wine festival in May, or maybe host a few wine riders in town. But then I remember, I think it got canceled for COVID, but I was on an invite, you know, to fly to New York, you know, I was like, wow, right. New York, you know, and I was, you know, I can't remember if it was like Chris Cherry, Matt Trevison, there was, you know, myself, a few of us were slated to go, and of course that got scratched. Yeah. And then I heard you did this whole, you know, Asian Pacific trip recently, you know, so you've kind of gone from, you know, again, just kind of a regional association, national, now international. I just find that really fascinating.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, working with brands like Lohr and the folks who just have a brand that is in 50 states, is in multiple countries. It's so fun to have those because then we can go to Asia, we can go to Europe and bring multiple brands, and they're all telling that Paso story. So I think that's been the success of it is we get to work with more than just one brand. We get to work with, 10 to 12 big brands, probably 30 or 40 medium-sized brands, and then 100 smaller brands. But they all work so well together, right? Whether you're selling 1,000 cases of something that you make or, 1,000,000 cases. It's like people have this thirst for Paso. Where is it? What kind of grapes grow well here? Why do they grow well here? He can, Chris has these great stories of the terroir of Paso and the soils and the climate and all these factors. We bring winemakers on the road who can tell the story. And, we just kind of put it together and package it. And then these guys can tell the actual story of, okay, here's why the fruit works. Here's how the fermentation works, and people like that, but they also like knowing that we're friends and we build it together. And we're competitors. There's competitors in the market, but they're really like friendly competitors because they rely on each other to like make better wines and grow better fruit, right?
Yeah. And what I like about it, being a boomer, and my age group or whatever, is just. It's very tangible. It's real people telling the story. It's not some, I'm sure that you could get pretty far just with sort of, digital media and penetrating people's phones and their lives that way. But I feel like the awareness that we brought has been, again, brought about through just good old fashioned storytelling and handshakes and
it's going on the road and doing road shows and showing up in people's tasting bars and restaurants and pouring Paso wines.
Okay, so the dumb question to set some additional context for those who don't know, and I don't know how they do not know about you already, but what is the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance?
Good question. So Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance, it's a 501c6. It's a trade organization, nonprofit. We are the official trade and marketing organization of the Paso Robles AVA, which was it became in existence in 1983. So 42 years ago. And our mission is to promote and to protect the wines and experiences of Paso Robles. Anything I forgot there, Chris?
I don't think so. I mean, we are a membership-based organization.
Yeah.
So we have somewhere around 500 or so members. About 200 of them are wineries. But then all of the other organizations that choose to be a part of our organization are basically doing it to support the industry that supports them. So whether it be hoteliers, glass purveyors, restaurants, exactly, attorneys, and
graphic artists. Yeah, it's cool.
Very
like,
diverse.
I always like to say we're like the Chamber of Commerce of the wine industry. Which is a good way. I was on a call this morning. Like, what does the Wine Alliance do? It's like, well, think of the Chamber of Commerce, but it's all based about the wine industry. And if you're not, and you're in it, it's because you want to be in and around it. And so last night was a good example. You've got probably a half to 2/3 of those people are wineries or winemakers, wine owners. And then you got a third of them who are like they just want to be part of it because they're lenders or they're graphic artists or they're marketers, they're event people who just want to be in and around and support the industry because it's one thing to make the wines and we're lucky to have amazing wine makers and wine owners who make it, but then it's everything else when you come to town. It's like how do I plan a 3-day trip? Do I take a van? Do I take a bus? What do I eat? What can I get sandwiches? Like all those things make up you need to have all those things together on the same team. So we're kind of like the collective voice of the region. And we've been lucky to have just, I think, a string of just really good executive directors, good work, good just support teams who's like people like Chris and Carol, just people, they build this great network. And so for me, it's been an awesome 6 years to just work that, pass the baton. It comes to me and it's not me, it'll be someone else, I think, just doing a great job because we've worked with great people.
Yeah, I mean, Paso on a PR sense has been on a very hot PR trend, and it's been trending upward more so than a lot of the other regions. And I would largely say that you guys have a significant impact in some of that too.
I think so. I'd like to think so. Yeah, thanks. I think there was probably a little bit of a turning point, maybe somewhere around the time. Can we mention other brands? Is that
yeah, for sure?
That Saxum, when they were recognized for a 100-point score and #1 wine in the world, where it felt like all of a sudden a lot of journalists and critics and the like are almost picking up the phone and calling us like, oh, okay, so all right, Paso, like what's happening down there? Like what's What's going on? Like, why? That was one of those moments that then from there, it just, like I always say, press begets press. And so then you guys get something good and they get something good. Everybody starts to get a little bit of piece of press that it gets more eyeballs looking at us. And then, they want the story too. They want to come down and or come up or over or wherever for themselves witness what's going on in Paso Robles. And there were other things too. We got, Wine Region of the Year with the Wine Star Award. You guys got your Wine Star Award as well. There were other brands. There's a lot of those little bits of recognition that all kind of feed into that bit of I guess you could say recognition, and buzz factor that helps to really kind of get those wheels moving for people and for us as a region, truly.
Yeah, I like to think it's, folks from around the nation, they're flying into San Francisco. When they get in their rental car, they decide to, drive south instead of north. And you guys have had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. I mean, and you guys have too. And that's the fun thing. I think the thing about Paso which is unique is you've got some larger, I call them legacy brands, who have this footprint, right? And they're able to be in really cool wine shops, in really cool restaurants, in really cool grocery stores, right? And so that's sometimes the first time they've tasted Paso Robles is that first bottle of Seven Oaks Cab or Liberty School Cab or Dow Cab. And so these brands who like, man, you guys have this network of salespeople who are like, I'm going to sell my wine in all these places. And then you've got the small, tiny brands that also draw some of the critical acclaim. And then you have this melding pot in the middle of all these people coming together. And so it's like you said, that's what we want is when people come to LA, drive north to Paso. When you come to San Francisco, drive south to Paso.
Well, isn't Sonoma jealous of Paso Robles? Like we have more Michelin restaurants than like the county of Sonoma now or something.
I don't think they're jealous. I mean, we love our friends in Sonoma. No, we love our friends in Sonoma, but I think we've certainly made a dent in California tourism in terms of like where people are going. And also it is like it's funny, you walk into a wine shop and look at where the wines are. There's more and more different Paso Robles. You walk to a fine restaurant. There's a Paso Robles section now, which you didn't see that 20 years ago.
Yeah, and J. Lohr, Jerry, our founder, is just so humble.
I know.
But that Seven Oaks Cabernet, we really have thought of it as kind of like the handshake from Paso Robles, to a world of wine drinkers, and kind of that postcard from Paso Robles. It kind of got sort of the earliest. Sort of familiarization and awareness of Paso Robles.
Oh, definitely.
To me, I still struggle with, were those drinkers in the 90s, the 2000s, when they were picking up, J. Lohr Seven Oaks Cabernet, were they just picking up J. Lohr, or were they at that point, I think at that point, Paso Robles was kind of a footnote on their enjoyment of that Cabernet. Today, they see Paso Robles on the label, and it's more than a footnote on a bottle of J. Lohr Seven Oaks.
And it's almost like it has these other things of like, what does that mean in your head? Okay, it's probably Central California. We know it's not Napa, not Sonoma. Where is Paso? Oh, that's quality. Oh, that's value. So there's things that we're trying to, that we've always, I think, used either, because you can argue whether they're good or bad, but value's always been associated with I think Paso. And so, but you don't want it to be like, you never want to be called cheap. You don't want, inexpensive, you can go either way, but I think value is where we offer, because whether it's a $100 bottle of wine or a $17 bottle of wine, I think the value's there.
Yeah. Value's really not all about price, exactly. Right? You can have value at $50 a bottle. You can have value at $20 a bottle.
Those wines you guys make, the Gesture series for a while, those were insane. And it was like, wait, this is whatever it was, $68 or whatever. And those wines, and then your high-end wine, which we poured, a wine fest, I think 2 years ago on that panel. And it was just like, it was such an incredible, beautiful bottle of wine. And I think it was it was probably the most inexpensive bottle of wine.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was.
And they were all, over 50. They were all over $60, but they were just like, man, our wines are good in Paso.
Yeah.
It's cool.
So the question I have for each of you, especially, Steve, you've been here in Paso for a while. I want the J. Lohr perspective, and then I want your team's perspective. There's levels to popularity, say for Paso wine. What are a couple iconic marquee either events, press releases, or things that happened that you said, oh, Paso, J. Lohr stepped up a level here when this happened? I mean, it's been a 50-year history now for J. Lohr. Paso wine, almost as long maybe, But for you, Steve, as a winemaker, what do you think?
Well, one of the ones that it actually predated, Wine Spectator's recognition of Saxum. There was Steve Imhoff is a name you guys would remember, but
Wine enthusiast,
he was Wine Enthusiast, top wine writer for the state of California. He came down to Paso Robles, I think, in 2008, and he did a call for red blends.
Okay.
And he didn't specify whether they were Bordeaux or blends or Rhone style blends or anything to that effect. And I think he ended up getting 65 submissions. And his favorite wine, his top scoring wine, was the Lohr Cuvée Saint E, which is kind of code for Saint-Emilion, and it's a Cabernet Franc based blend. And he calls me and he says, where on the west side of Paso Robles did you grow these grapes? And we're sitting here at our winery on Airport Road in the middle of the Estrella district, and I can point to that block from here. And anyway, for me, that was a really, that was a feather in my cap. That put some swagger into my step,
I
And
remember that taste.
do you really?
Yeah, because I had to bag all the wines and everything. That was a blind. We did it blind. And bagged all the wines for Steve. He was an interesting dude.
For Steve Imhoff,
Steve Imhoff, yes, thank you.
Did he have his dog with him?
No, he did not.
Yeah.
This may have predated that, actually, possibly, because I know he was so close to that. I can't believe I can't remember his dog's name because I did meet him a few times. Anyway, we had to bag him, and that was my first actual time meeting Steve too, because I'd only been in my job for about a year, and I was like, whoa, are all wine critics this quirky? Like, he was just a quirky dude. Really nice guy, truly.
Like very particular, you mean?
Yeah. Really particular. Very, yes. That's a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
But really, really nice guy. But he definitely seemed to have a few, I think, kind of like, biases in the sense of like, Paso is this, and I think you're right. It opened up his mind into what Paso could be beyond what he knew it to be.
Yeah, and it was beyond what I knew it to be. I mean, we helped him unravel some of those biases. And I have to say, I was, however many years younger then. I know a lot more now than I did then. And I have so much respect for the sub-appellation process today that when it was happening, I was like, why are all these people bothering to, spend so much time on this and fuss with this and that. But I've found that by and large that those sub-appellations have real meaning and help, and they help. They do describe, some of the nuances of wine styles and varietal, which varieties do better in which parts of town.
And it's still evolving too. I feel like in the last, because it's been around now for 10 years, a little over, now 11 years, right? Because it was approved in 2014. And I remember it was in this very room that we had a lot of those meetings. And now, 10 years, 11 years later, you're starting to see how people speak of the AVAs in a way that's really looking at how things growing. Is it growing better? Is it, which direction? And all of those little tiny nuances are now being a little bit more applied and talked about versus back then it was just straight up climate and soil and
location more.
Exactly.
Here it is. And now it's like what grows better.
Yeah.
What ages better.
But it's still getting there. I think it still has another 10, probably 20 years.
100 years, I think.
Before we really can say that maybe one grape or one style of farming or whatever it might be, one trellis, system is best in this AVA or that AVA and all of that. But it was a great process that we're still growing into.
Yeah, for me, one of those milestones was actually being in this room. I was working for Hope at that time, and I was tabbed to be come to those meetings, and we'd sit in here, and Jerry Lohr was here, and I was in awe of he's there, and Villa Connors are here, and Gary Eberle's in the room, and you're just like, man, this is Bob Haas. You're like, this is this is like the heavy hitters of why am I here? You know, and they're talking about maps, and they've got the lawyer down who's drawing writing the petition for the TTB, and then they've got speakers coming in talking about like climatologists talking about the soils and the winds and everything, and then there's always this jockeying of like, well, we think it should be on this road or this line, or you know, our winery's going to be on this side of that, but it worked out beautifully, and it's so rare to have an AVA come together and do it at the same time. As you know, Napa has numerous sub-AVAs, but they've all kind of been piecemealed and added at different times, which, again, not right or wrong, but I think, to see a region come together and say, again, we're going to work together as a community, as a family, we're going to hire climatologists and people to figure it out and do it at one time is pretty unique, right? Have all those AVAs and do it science-based. That was pretty cool for me. And then I think the other thing that's just so fun for me to see as the evolution of Paso is critics who come here and discovered Paso and then continue to kind of be champions, right? So when Jeb Dunnick started coming, when he was with Wine Advocate, Hospice Daron, that was just so cool to see him on some of his first trips to the region. And then Elaine Brown from, Elaine Brown, Chuck and Brown, we brought her for her first trip to Paso Robles and show her around. And that's cool because like they have some preconceived notions of like east side, west side, or, and then you take them out and they're like, you take them out here and they're like, this is incredible. Like they're so blown away by that. Madeline Paquette came, I think it was her first trip. I've hosted like 3 or 4 writers their first time to Paso because Samantha Cole Johnson from Jansen's Robinson came 2 years ago for the first time. And it's so fun for us to like, handpick these people, bring them to Paso, and then like just give them 3 or 4 days of just, and then they're incredibly blown away by how fun it is, how great the people are, but how great the wines are too.
So I like all these milestones, right? You have your own personal winemaking accolade here, Steve. I like it. And then, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, it's a great way to make a living.
Yeah.
And now we actually are making a living. There was, some years ago, the economic prosperity of, vineyard owners and winery owners in Paso Robles is, it hasn't been a straight line to where we are today.
All right, so the question on that is always interesting from maybe on your side is as you balance consumer play and trade play, how do you think about that and flying the Paso flag in each of those? Because 2 very different audiences, different wineries that you're also supporting in those efforts.
Yeah, it's a fine line you have to walk for sure. Chris helps me with it a lot because a lot of the, like we talked about, a lot of the wineries in Paso are DTC only, and and they want those folks, coming through the tasting room, enjoying their wine club, and that's great. That is a business model that if you can get it to work is awesome, right? Because there's zero margin. I mean, there's zero margin going to like a third party. It's all going, to the winemaker and their team. And that's great, but there's so many, the backbone of Paso obviously is these kind of larger legacy brands who've done the work of like getting the end cap in HEB in Texas or selling wine at Gary's Fine Wine, guys who've put the work in, and they're having to sell boxes of wine that are literally half the cost because it's going to the distributor and it's going to shipping and kind of compliance and those things. So it's a fine line. We try and walk it pretty well. And I think that the little guys for the most part understand that if there's not, Jay Lohr's out in the world and Justin's and Hope's, these guys aren't going to succeed. So I think it's making sure they understand that too.
I think, we actually work with 2 different kind of taglines, if you will. One is Where Wine Takes You, right? And that is all about that feeling, that essence of wine and what it does, in your everyday life or, going somewhere special or, celebrating something or anything and all of that. And then we also have for the trade and for the media, for that matter, is Paso Robles Even Cooler Than You Think. And that component is all about talking about the particulars of why it's unique to grow grapes here and what makes it special and all of that. And that always seems to resonate with people because it is talking about how it cools down here at night and all of those components. And the way I don't know if this best answers your question or not, but the way they all it works together to these different audiences, I feel that it really helps to really even out and tell that Paso story for those 2 different audiences. Because with the trade audience, they like the particulars, right? They like all of the detail and the soil and the pHs and all those types of things. But then our consumer audience, they want to feel awesome when they come here, right? They're coming to wine country for a reason. They're getting away and they're relaxing and they're enjoying their time here. And that's where wine takes them, is here.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a very hard balance to have because not only do you want to support what's out in the market, but just bringing people down here too and experiencing. And there's so much been development in the last, I mean, I've been at Lohr now for 5 years. I'm not going to say the new kid thing anymore, Steve, don't worry. But even in the last 5 years, I feel like it's changed a lot already.
Yeah.
And
In terms of Paso?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the restaurant scene downtown, Tin City's exploded. There's an experience here. We've got like a Sensorio, which I think you've talked about maybe in the past. It's like this world-class art of light art exhibit in the rolling hills of East Paso. You've got the Vineyard Robles Amphitheater, which is bringing in people like, like Tony Bennett and Avett Brothers and all these great artists who are playing. And then you've got, McPhee's in Templeton, which has been here for 25 years.
Yeah. I don't know, where I used to eat before Edo opened, or in Bloom, or Petit Canaille, or all these amazing restaurants. I mean, it's just been really additive. And
it's been cool to see the evolution, and I think that's the one thing we walk about too. We always walk that fine line of locals saying, well, is there too much wineries, or is there too much tourism, is there too much traffic? But I think for the most part, if you're talking to someone who's objective and they're like, well, we understand that that's great because it helps fund our tax base, right? Like people are coming, they're staying in hotels, they're buying gas, they're buying meals, they're making our system run. And so I think Paso's done a pretty good job of making sure that it's not too bad. I mean, we've all been in Napa and we love it, but like the 29 and the Silverado Trail, it gets backed up, you're bumper to bumper. And it's like here, it's like, there's no, even on a bit, it's basically during the fair for maybe 2 weeks. But you're not you're rarely getting backed up on like the 46 East or the 46 West or Vineyard Drive. Like it's just beautiful all the time. It's fun. Yeah, we're lucky.
I feel good when I drive home after work. Of course, I like my drive on the 46 West and heading that direction. But I also love my drive to work in the morning. I get I'm heading east. I get the sun in my eyes, but I'm driving through these vineyards and it's a pretty good feeling.
Yeah.
If you can say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Both ways. You
Yeah.
just kind of just feels good.
I have my question for you guys, if you don't mind me asking a question.
Yeah.
How about what about the growth of Lohr, of Lohr? I mean, as a brand, Jerry in the family starting it years ago, and then like to see it. We used to come over here and it was bigger and it was growing, but now it's like this. You guys have just got this growth of like we're in 50 states and around the world, and that's got to be fun as a winemaker to say, okay, this not only is going to be sold here in California or sold.
Well, my job is to look after the product.
Yeah.
I will say, I've seen us, double from 200,000 cases to 400, and I saw us double again from 400 to 800, and double a third time from 800 to 1.6 million cases now. And guess what? I walk every vineyard and taste the fruit before I make a picking decision for every vineyard block that we harvest here. I can still get my arms around it, believe it or not.
Yeah.
A lot of that has to do with, along with our brand growth has been, our land holding or vineyard growth that just has kind of come along with it. So, it's just really great. We are still that authentically, how Jerry Lohr likes to,
absolutely.
He likes to turn the bottle around and point on the back label, that arcane little label, produced and bottled at Lohr,
it's cool
and,
to see
and
you
how
guys
it
do
really
that.
reflects, that we're still, we're not, so much of the wine industry has kind of been distorted,
I agree.
Through
bulk
just
juice
sort of
and this and
brokerage,
that. Yeah, I agree.
brokerage sourced wines and the California appellation, I guess. Is California technically an appellation?
It is,
rather than, kind of the coastal regional appellations so we've seen a lot of that growth, but again, I feel like because we're not sourcing in Lodi and Sonoma and I don't know, Modesto and statewide, we're sourcing here in Paso, an hour's drive north to our Monterey vineyards where we're growing Pinot and Chard.
Yeah.
And then we've got our little 35 acres in St. Helena, Napa, which I'm happy to visit a couple of times a year to go catch up with old friends. We can still kind of get our arms around it and not not feel sort of stretched.
That's
That
cool.
nobody likes
Yeah.
that feeling of being overly stretched, day late, dollar
Yeah.
short. You're picking decisions over the phone rather than actually being able to
Yeah.
walk the block and check the weather.
I think
and
it's
all
like
those
that's part of the
things.
story of Paso is when we're out there, we're actually what I call like defenders of Paso. Sometimes I'm like, oh well, these guys are so big and they're everywhere. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, but that's so cool. Like I get calls from like Jerry Lohr, Steve Peck, like these guys, yeah, they're making an incredible amount of wine. And by the way, it's just as hard to make a bottle. Like try making a million cases of wine that all tastes really good. Like I could make a barrel of wine. I'm sure it'd be really
Yeah,
good. But
and you mentioned barrels, as you know, our barrel as we've done, those 3 doublings in my career, our barrel program has also done 3 doublings. So it's kind of the same process, but at scale.
Yeah.
And so we have it, knock on wood, our brand strength, our appellation strength still supports, a family and a group of people that are making wine the old fashioned way. We're not bulk sourcing. We're not tank aging and some of these, little shortcuts and things like that. It's really pretty remarkable, not only for our own satisfaction, but for, again, ultimately it's for, the people who buy our wine. It's for their satisfaction.
But the last point before we add into the new wine, for me, in terms of the scaling side is amazing, but the stories that I always enjoy, especially on the business side, are the almost ridiculous things that C-level or owners still do. Like, for example, Jerry Lohr, even last week, told me, oh, I was at the Safeway by my house, and he'll find bottles that we have that last year we switched one of the labels, and if it's on the shelf, he'll just buy the 3 bottles immediately.
So classic.
And then ask the person there, hey, you have the new ones, right? What happened? Is there any more of these ones? And he still will stop and do that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
Which
cool.
is, and you think about it, like, oh man, you just bought 3 of those ones, but it's those things that are unscalable that they still do that is remarkable to me. So
It really is the brand strength of Paso. If people, I get lucky enough to go speak on different panels or talk to other executive directors and talk on a level of kind of, well, why is Paso so hot, or why is the Alliance? And I always just point back to the families I work with. I mean, literally, like when you've got people like who you can reach out to, whether it be a Lohr family member, Gary Eberly, Austin Hope, like these guys, like they care about, they still care, and they understand that we're partners, like we're valuable to each other, which is a really cool thing to have. And the same thing. I mean, Chris has every winemaker in his cell phone in Paso, and so when a writer calls and says, "Hey, what's going on in X, Y, and Z," he literally can get an answer in 30 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if that exists all over the world, but to be able to have that openness and to trust in us as the Alliance that we can contact them practically at all hours. Not really. I mean, it's not like I'm calling Steve Peck at midnight because I have a question for him. But maybe on a Sunday or something like that, I might reach out to you because I got a question. And you want to be able to turn that around quickly. And I love the fact that everybody here is just so joined together in the camaraderie that exists, that knows that we're a trusted source, as you could say.
Just don't try and get a quote out of us about Canada and,
I know, right?
and the tariffs.
I know. It was touch and go last week. I was at Unified. I was on a panel with Honor Comfort, who's the vice president of international marketing for Wine Institute, and it was the day of they announced the tariffs, and she was on the phone with Wine Institute, and then of course we know
Her phone's just blowing
several
up. Yeah.
large legacy brands sell a lot of wine in Canada, which means a lot to their business. So I'm sure it was a very stressful time.
well, this one is not in Canada.
Okay, so let's talk about this one.
And this one is this one even released yet, or is it just about to be released, I guess, this next week?
It's going out in our winter shipment for all our club members. Again, you talked a little bit about, Paso Robles cooler than you think for, maybe more the distribution channel, and Pure Paso that we tasted is a wine that's available coast to coast. This wine, our Raincatcher Vineyard field blend, is winery exclusive item. It's kind of more for I don't want to say it's for the tourists, but it's for the people who really want to dig deep and enjoy a single vineyard wine. And this
Adelaide
was
district too.
Yeah. And you notice that sort of champagne green glass I was talking about. It kind of look, doesn't it look like it was being on a some Italian table back in the 30s or the 50s? It's kind of this retro take on just picking the three grape varieties on a single day and plopping them in one tank, and so it's kind of it's a Mourvedre dominant,
Cool.
blend about 65% Mourvedre. We did about 20% Grenache in there, but and we did that whole cluster. The Mourvedre, we removed the stems, and then it finishes with Syrah. But again, it was what the term is called co-fermentation.
Yeah.
So where we do some other blends here at Lohr, or many blends, in fact, but we always make each variety separately, and then
blend
in
later.
the spring later, we kind of get out our tasting glasses and start mixing and matching to perfect the blend. This one we just kind of made a good guess, and you can read on the fine print there. I think it was 17 boxes of Mourvedre.
I love that. I 17 boxes of Mourvedre, 9 boxes of Grenache, and 2 boxes of Syrah. That's great.
It's great because like the story, it harkens back to like Italian winemaking, right? Of like, well, it's in this field, and it's all Rhones there, it's all Italian varietals, and you just kind of put it together. And
the rain's coming. Let's pick.
It's got a cool like a juiceiness factor to it. To me, it's like kind of just pops off the tongue a little bit. It's really cool.
Yeah, we could never have done that if we
that.
made each variety separately, because the Mourvedre gives it that kind of base note, that brooding character overlay, but underneath it's got that bright brambly character, not just from Grenache, but from the carbonic Grenache, because it's
whole cluster.
whole cluster. It kind of gives it more of that kind of candied fruit version of Didn't you make Grenache?
I did. Yeah.
Did you destem it, or did you?
I did destem it. Yeah, I did. Yeah. But I did go with a little bit lighter of a maceration to it at the time, and so it kind of came out kind of candied, kind of brighter red fruit type,
which is what people are looking for from Grenache. And if you want to amp that up, even more, maybe do it, 10 or 20% of it, just whole cluster, and put, you put the superior grapes on top of it, that are destemmed. But just really fun.
It's cool. What's the price point on this? Do you know? Is it
That's a great
range?
question. I want to say it's between like $40 and $50 at the most.
Yeah,
it's killer. It's just such a fun wine. I love the
really
green glass. The green glasses. I love the green glass.
Yeah.
I mean, aesthetically, it's cool.
So and so I guess the wine snobs would say it's kind of more of a Bandol style of a Rhone blend, being that kind of Mourvedre dominant characteristic. I kind of farming by Johnny Pierini, who's just he's just an amazing vineyard manager that we have. And then kind of ideated by me and kind of oversight, and then Brendan Wood, as our red winemaker, kind of was really, looking after all the ferment. And of course, he's always been real reluctant to use, much oak, particularly on our winery exclusive wines. We're using large format, 500-liter puncheons that are, 5 years old, just again to showcase the fruit. Yeah.
And then certainly with Rhone varietals, right? I mean, I know that Tablas uses a lot of large format. Is that kind of a Rhone thing in terms of like not wanting to go over oak on those varietals?
It really is, and I've done a few trips there, and I remember going to Genasse, which is one of the famous families there, but I think there is a tradition, like the Foudre might be like a couple thousand gallons.
Yeah.
And then they'll have puncheons, and then they'll have 60-gallon barrels as well. And what I remember is the Syrah goes into 60-gallon barrels, and the Mourvedre goes in the mid-size, and the Grenache goes into the large format. There's like a whole vibe.
Some science for it.
Yeah, there's a whole vibe there that they do, and so that. Co-fermentation is not entirely, that is not the norm in the Rhone. In fact, they typically age the wines as separate varietals for, the year and a half, and then the family sits together around a table like this, and then they start mixing and matching to come up with the blend just, a couple months before the bottling date. That's kind of their standard practice.
How often do you guys come out with something kind of fun and new and different like this? Because when we sat down, I was like, oh, I really like that Shotwell Vineyard single vineyard wine, and that was new at the time. You've had others as well, and now this. I mean, you guys always seem to be coming up with fun, cool, new little wines.
It's like one of those things you hear, like, I can't make any new friends because I'd have to get rid of an old friend, and so I think I kind of look at it that way. So I think we go through some cycles where, we're making, 10 wines for our tasting room. We're making 12. We're making 16 suddenly. And then Jerry Lohr comes in and like, well,
how many do we make?
Do we really need, a Viognier and a Grenache Blanc and a white, anyway, so he'll ask us to rationalize and, trim back, and then, and then the cycle repeats itself, and they made room for this one. And this Raincatcher Vineyard, if you don't recall, it's the westernmost vineyard in the AVA.
Wow.
And the name comes from, we've been getting a lot of rain this week. Look on your PRWCA weather report and look at what vineyard has the highest rainfall total in all of Paso. It's I think it might be called PR18 on your report, but we brand name it.
Is that vineyard on Chimney Rock? Or
it's just past Justin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
That's right.
That's killer.
Yeah. So it's actually called Cypress Mountain Road, but
Gotcha.
just past Justin a little ways, and you'll find some higher totals in York Mountain, but which is of course outside the AVA.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are the only vineyards where you'll see anything higher, but every other vineyard is going to be just a few inches lower.
I think you're just a stone's throw away from Rocky Butte, and Rocky Butte always in the county always records the highest amount of rainfall in our county. And so I think
is that a vineyard, or is that
Rocky Butte is actually a big Rocky Butte.
Oh, okay, all right.
Behind,
so it's a landmark.
Behind Hearst Castle, right out there, and I think you're just a little south east
and
of it.
There's a weather station there.
There's a weather station there, and and that whole because it's the way the formation there and everything, and that whole orographic lift thing happens, and it sucks the water out of the sky.
It is kind of the back door of Hearst Castle, that area where this vineyard's located. Can't get there from Hearst Castle, of course,
not a helicopter,
unless you're on a burro or something.
Exactly.
You have zebras out of here?
Unless you're good at riding the zebras.
I got two last questions for you all.
All right.
Okay, I want to know, over this time that you've been here in Paso and with Paso Wine Alliance, what's been one, like, the most memorable either event, thing that happened, maybe a little humorous, or that was really impactful for you, like personally, something that stands out?
Personally,
we probably have a lot, but
what about that time we were in Chicago and
we've had some good time. So we've been traveling, like you said, for like 20 years. 20 years. Whether I worked for the Alliance or worked for a brand, I've worked for a few brands here in the region. But I think one of the most memorable things for us, and he might say the same thing, is like going to Asia last year with Paso. We went part of a wine institute and invited us to come. We were the featured wine region in Japan and South Korea. And so if we went for 10 days, and they're like, get 10 brands, right? And so those 10 brands were basically some of the big five legacy. We had J. Lohr was there, Justin, Hope, Dow, and then we had some smaller brands. And it was just such a cool experience to showcase Paso for all these tastings. And it was just incredible to see the thirst for what's it looking like, what's it taste like, all those things. It was just really cool.
Yeah, I would say that would definitely be an exceptionally memorable occasion for us to have this electricity of attention. During that time, the audience that we were presenting to and doing these master classes, doing the whole even cooler than you think there, and the translation and
like the questions they were asking Chris were crazy. Like they were taking notes. And then he's talking, and then there's a translator. It's either translating back into Japanese or Korean. It was just insane. And remember, like, the trade used to be really excited. Like, remember, like 10 years ago? I think they're a little more jaded now, but the trade used to be in America. They're still really into it over there. It
Well,
was,
didn't
like,
you
so
guys
cool.
get rushed by a bunch of K-pop fans?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, so what is that picture then?
That's Steve at the airport, Steve Lohr at the airport, right when the K-pop group was coming through the air, and as
Would
you
that
can
be in
see,
Seoul?
as he's towering above everybody else there.
Steve's like 6'5".
We had just landed in Korea,
Yeah.
and this BTS type band, K-pop band, had landed, and then we were caught in the middle of it, and then like Steve Lohr, who was taller than anyone, was there. It was insane.
These fans come up to his belt buckle. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that trip was pretty cool, just to see this kind of international appeal of our region, and to have, again, that camaraderie come together of those brands that traveled with us, small brands, large brands alike, to just all come together to share that message of Paso. That was really
And we
special.
had so many like principals and winemakers on that brand. And I don't know if a lot of regions would actually have that, where there's still like the owner of the winery or the winemakers is traveling for 10 days on behalf of, like, that's pretty cool. Steve Lohr is there, like, you know, Brian Teresi, Chris Cherry, like people who own brands, who are winemakers, or like said, hey, I'm going to go there. I'm going to fight that Paso. And they weren't just flying it for their own brand. They're flying it for all of Paso, you know? That's what's kind of cool.
I have another moment in my head, though, which was about 3 years ago, when we reimagined Paso Wine Fest from being the Paso Robles Wine Festival, where it was held in the park for many, many years. And well, COVID did this. We had to not have our event in 2020. We took 21 off as well. And we took that time to really rethink what the wine festival could be, right? And then also about where we want it to be, say, in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. And rolling out, renaming it Paso Wine Fest, moving it over to the event center, completely redoing the presentation, creating activations, creating more excitement, how we presented the wineries, how they were tented, how everything flowed, even in the back of the house, you know, working with new people, with new imagination and new ways of doing things. It's night and day.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely night and day. I've done, like I said, I've been in this position 18 years. I did a lot of wine fests in that park. I bled for that festival, literally. And
The dump bucket. You were on dump bucket.
I was always on dump buckets. I don't know why. You know why? I'll tell you why. It's
does dump
because
buckets.
I feel terrible asking people to do that. And so, like, you know, if I'm not willing to do the job, why ask somebody to do it? But then I end up doing it just because honestly, I feel terrible asking a volunteer to lug around a bunch of these dump buckets. Well, that sloshing, gross wine.
Have you ever spilled it on yourself?
Yes, I have.
Is there a splash into your mouth?
No. Well, kind of. Well, I mean, not on purpose. But Wine Fest, though, having that, but then having a community then also, though, I think this is the big part. Okay, consumers, do they notice it? Yeah, of course. Consumers are going to notice it, the ones that have been coming or whatever, but there's also a lot of new consumers. I mean, there's a large percentage of the people that attend Wine Fest are actually new to Wine Fest. But I think what was really great, though, is the wineries. Wineries sitting there going, wow, you guys, you did it. Like, this is awesome. You guys have crushed it. Like, this is, the crowd is more serious. The crowd is more intent when they're coming.
It's kind of about like reinvention. You guys have done that with different wines you guys have done. And, you know, we did it with Paso Wine Fest, like that reinvention of it. You still can excite the people who've been there for the long time, but also you got to bring new fans in. We talk about it all the time offline. Like, how do you bring new fans into wine? And Wine Fest, I think, has captured. Last year, you guys were doing like the 50th anniversary. You guys were doing burgers there or meat, you know. And then Gary was there celebrating 40 years, and Hope's doing, you know, whatever, caviar. Like, everyone's like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, I get to experience all of Paso in, like, you know, one city block.
Well, we've come a long way from, just, you know, some cheese and crackers to what you were doing, like a Wagyu beef.
Yes, it was so good last year.
I got another idea which I will not say on the pod, but I will say it afterwards. I'm going to need your help to get this approved because it's a little out there.
It's not a dunk tank, is it?
It's not a dunk tank.
Good,
I think it's better, though. Okay, so last, I said two things. I got one little fun game, and then I want to know what's next for the Wine Alliance. But here's a game that I want all of you to answer. All right. So I want you to blind rank. I'm going to give you guys 5 what I think, and I've asked a few other people to help me on 5 major Paso attractions or reasons to visit Paso. I'm gonna give them to you one at a time, and you have to rank them 1 to 5, 1 being the best, 5 being the worst. But you're not gonna know the entire list. So I'm gonna give you one at a time, and you have to just pick a number.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
That's kind of difficult.
Shoot.
So once you commit to it, you gotta go for it, all right? All right, so the first one, Sensario.
10.
No, well, the 10's not even a number. 1 is the best, right? That's number 1 in your mind.
Oh,
and
I
then you
thought
have
10
5.
was the best.
Exactly.
Well, I
And
don't want
5
to come
is-
right out the gate saying 5 in anticipation that you're going to say
That's
something
the game.
else super cool.
Is 1 the best or 5 the
1 the best. 1 is the best. That's your number 1 pick.
I'm going to go 3.
Okay.
I'm 3.
I'm going to go 5. I'm just going to do it just to get it out of the way.
Okay.
I love Sensario. I do.
I'm gonna do like you. I'm gonna put it in the middle. Just kind of put it in the middle.
I'm going strategy here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move. Don't look
yeah.
at my computer. All right. All right. This one. Let's go to Downtown Square.
Ah, yeah. See, that's why.
I'm going 1.
Darn it.
I'm going 1.
I'm going to go 3.
The park.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, no, Downtown Square, like all of downtown, right?
Yeah.
That
Just,
includes all
there's
that.
the park and there's what's
the
around
walking
it.
around.
I'm
Yeah.
going to do 3. Yeah.
2.
2.
Okay.
Okay. The next one is going to be the Vine Street Victorian Christmas Parade.
Darn it. Why did I burn 5? No, I'm kidding.
I'm going to go 5. I love it. It's still top 5. But it is so many people. And I'm like becoming Chris in my old age. I get people go annoy me. So it's so crowded. It's dark.
Yeah.
You like your personal space.
Exactly.
I love my personal 4. I'll
Okay.
do 4.
I'll do 5.
All right. So hold on. Let's recap real fast. We have 3 things. Joel, where are you at so far?
I've got a 1, 3, 5. So I need to fill up 2 and 4. At this
All
point.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. And where are
I
you
need
at?
to
so-
fill 1 and 2.
Oh, you're saving the best for last.
I've still got 1 and 4 open.
Okay, so you guys are kind of the same. You guys are copying each other.
Yeah.
over
I'm
here.
saving room for the J-Lord tasting
I
room.
know. I was going to say.
Same here.
He's going to sneak
Like,
it in.
what's on the list?
I was like,
Don't look at the list.
Well, I haven't heard of wineries
I
yet.
want this on the
so.
list. This is never worked for me.
All right, the next one, California Mid-State Fair.
Ah, see? Darn.
It's a tough one. It's so.
2.
So are we talking about the concerts, the livestock, or the
However
the
you
people
define
watching?
that. However you define the California Mid-State Fair.
I love the fair,
basically
but
went
I'm
1
going
to
to go
4, huh?
4
Ooh.
because it's one of the hottest weeks of the year.
So that should be number 1 then, because it's the hottest week, right? No, I'm just kidding.
And he also takes that week
I
off.
usually take that week. I usually
travels.
I usually leave Paso that week.
Then that should be 1, because that's guaranteed
Vine Street's
vacation.
like the coldest week of the year
know.
too. It's so cold. So
How are you going?
I think I'm going to go 1. I've had some great experiences
fun.
there. I've had some great experiences there.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, not over
I
in
hear
the
you.
farm
Yeah.
shed, but in
Yeah.
like the concerts
Yeah,
and stuff
concerts.
like that. You know, I mean, I like to look at the rabbits and
The single greatest concert, side note, I've ever been to in my life was at the Mid-State Fair. Was when Garth Brooks played there about 7 years ago. He hadn't toured in
2
10
shows.
years. and
Yeah.
He came out and he did 2 shows, and I've never been in a stadium where like 16,000 people knew every word to every song. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Last one,
Okay.
Paso Wine Fest.
Yes. Yes. I win. Number 1.
Number 2, but because I would already used the downtown park, but yeah.
0. That's higher than 1. Yeah.
Would you reorder anything now? Obviously, Wine Fest aside, it was going to be number 1 for you guys
I'm
because
pretty
it kind of
happy
has
with
to.
I'm good with my order.
So I went downtown park,
Yeah.
Wine Fest, Sensario,
Uh-huh.
Mid-State Fair, Vine Street. That's
That sounds pretty
that's
solid.
great.
I don't remember mine.
Yeah, all good stuff. I love it. Okay, the last thing. What's next for Paso Wine? What's next for Wine Alliance?
There's 2 things. Well, 2 things. I think.
Yeah, we've got a couple
the
things.
one thing, super geeky, like insider baseball thing is Chris and I once again have been asked by Wine Institute to go to Provine in Provine or Provine?
Provine in
Provine.
Dusseldorf.
Yeah. Do I
Dusseldorf.
pronounce it Provine or Provine?
I think you do it with a little
Provine. Provine.
Provine.
So there's going to be a California like wine tour. We're going to go to London, Dublin, then Dusseldorf. We're pouring wine. We're doing master classes. We're meeting journalists. So this again, like this is the Wine Institute saying, hey, everyone in the world's asking about Paso. Can you guys come represent? That's cool. So we get to do a selfishly a fun 10-day trip in Europe and pour a bunch of killer Paso wines. We're obviously Lohr will be there as well. That'll be fun. I think in terms of what's next, it's like we've got a pod as well. Like we just it's about amplification of what we're doing, and it's like we're doing LA, we're doing Fresno, we're doing San Jose, we're doing San Diego. We are trying to immerse and find as many new consumers to come to Paso as we can. And we know that there's, 20 million people who live south of us, 18 million who live north of us. Like, we've got to find these people and we can make them become ambassadors for Paso Robles. Because we have already so many. Let's get them here and let's like kind of win them over, whether that's with, video, podcasts, digital ads, but all that to get them here and drinking the juice that, we know and love. So.
Yeah. I'm excited for myself and in a slightly smaller scale, but also still as impactful and everything is that we're going to be working with a new PR agency this year. First time in 6 years that we've switched agencies. We loved our previous agency, but we took last year off just to kind of reassess what we're up to PR wise. This new agency that we've just hired, NST, Public Relations out of San Diego. Looking forward to working with them. They're, what's fun about them is that they've worked in the ag space, but they've not really worked in the wine space. And why that's interesting is because we're looking for some new perspectives and some new things. As you're doing PR and wine, it always feels like it's the same thing. And so trying to get some interesting new ways of approaching
Did
PR.
they do like those dancing raisins or the trucks that say "Got Milk"?
Got milk, exactly.
Who was that? That was Calangelo, wasn't it?
Yeah, really fun. No,
No, but yeah, so
something like that, right?
But I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to some new energy, some new thoughts, some new ways of doing things that maybe is a little outside of wine, but that can be really impactful because the consumer base is it's changing right now as we're talking about. Not you, Steve, but boomers, not, maybe timing out-ish or whatever it might be.
Timing out. Steve's timing out.
You're not, Steve's not timing out.
I'm just having fun now. Yeah.
That'll go viral.
But having some focus on the new wine consumer, people that are new to wine, people and all of that. I think this is one of those moments where we really want to try to see what's out there, see what's new, see how do we approach and re-energize people into wine or even those new to wine.
Can I ask a quick question that you can do what you want with, but how's the membership renewals of wineries and you talked about the restaurants and the,
He's like, I need wine.
You said your membership base is 200 wineries and 300 other kind of affiliate memberships or whatever you call them.
The Dodgers won the World Series this year. Did you guys see that? How about those Dodgers? So good.
Okay,
No,
so there's always a fear that that the renewals.
It's an interesting year. I think I'll tell you this. We've got a really great, strong membership. We've got such loyal members who've been part of the association for so long, and that's really positive. I will say. In just full transparency, I think there's a shift happening right now, and there's a lot of people who open to wineries who are really small, who are trying to figure out if that's viable, right? Like there's people who make, let's just call them like less than 3,000 cases. And so for them, the line item to join the alliance, it's not a massive number, but if you look at their budget, it might be a massive number. And so they're trying to evaluate that. So we're down a little bit. And because we've still got a few weeks to go. And kind of but just in full transparency, it's an interesting time in wine, and people are trying to figure out kind of what that looks like. So I think it's down a little bit as to normal years, but I also think that wine in general is figuring out things. This is global. This isn't like just in Paso in California. Like globally, there's just other options. There's a whole health and wellness thing going on. So I think that's about how do we make wine approachable and part of everyday life and in moderation. We're not trying to ask people to drink 2 bottles a day or 3 bottles a day. Like it's about just like, is it part of your life and do you know about it? So
On the sunny side, just the fact that Paso is such a DTC kind of destination, and to come to Paso, you're coming to Paso to come to Paso, right? Yeah. This isn't a day trip from a larger city. Yeah. And so we're not as bad off, I guess you could say, as Joel was kind of saying, like the rest of what is happening in the wine industry, because we still have that appeal and we still have that visitation. Right. And so that's still that strong suit for us that we can continue to try to promote and enhance. Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems. Yeah, there's a lot of financial anxiety
there's
out there
anxiety,
with
yeah, so
everybody.
some of the
But
small brands are gonna
I
figure it
imagine
out.
it's like selling advertising.
is.
Like well, I don't need to advertise anymore. Everybody
Yeah.
knows who we are, and everybody in town knows who we are. Well, how did they get to know
And
who you
that's
are?
exactly it. I
Because
think-
you've been advertising
Yep.
in the paper or the radio or whatever it might have to be.
And
but-
brands who are in it for the long game get that. I think that's what's cool about working with brands who I've worked with for 10, 20, 30 years, because they're like, oh yeah, well, it's part of we budget it, right? It's what we do. Some years we're going to get a home run, some years we're going to get singles, but it's part of what we do. And I think sometimes smaller brands are like, okay, I'm going to join this, and this is my marketing agency, and we're going to get X, Y, and Z. And they don't get it, and they're like, what happened? I'm like, hey, we've got 200 wineries. So it's just setting expectations, but we love it. We work with such great people, big and small. And
Well,
we're
speaking for
lucky.
everybody from J. Lohr, we're just really live in admiration of both of you and what you've done for the region and what you've done for J. Lohr. Just always inspiring to be together with both of you.
Cool.
So thank you.
Awesome,
Yeah.
thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cheers.
This wine's awesome, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
It's a fun one. Yeah.
Fun.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Try.
Yeah.
All right, so as we close out, how can people learn more about what your team is doing? How to come to all the different events that you're all doing?
Yeah, PasoWine.com. It's pretty simple. Yeah, PasoWine.com is our website. Paso Wine is our Instagram handle. I think Paso Robles Wine is our Facebook handle.
Yep.
And
Download the app.
download the app, which is really cool. We have an app. I
Yeah.
think we've got 10,000 downloads. We have our own podcast. I want to keep your podcast.
Do it.
Where Wine Takes You. It's on Apple, Spotify. If you Google Paso Wine, we're typically the first thing that comes up.
Oh, challenge accepted. I'm just kidding.
We're the first association,
Yeah.
obviously. The wineries all battle out for best winery, but yeah.
Well, I will leave
Yeah.
all of those linked down below to make it easy so you don't have to memorize all of those names. And then if you enjoyed this episode, wherever you are listening, make sure to hit subscribe, follow, and then share this with anyone who loves Paso wine, because this was, I'd say, a little mini masterclass here. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is fun.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Josh.